This is Battlefield Bad Company 2. So this is one of my older favorite series within, I guess, the overall Battlefield franchise. The first one was just absolutely amazing. I think my friend rented it or something like that, or bought it, and I was like, I have to get into this. It's so well done, it's so creative, it's so interesting. And yeah, we're on Xbox Series X. The game, slightly boosted res, a little bit cleaner around the edges. It's still sort of quite rough looking, but we do get, HDR support, throttle HDR, which is great, and it does have pretty smooth performance the whole way through. So yeah, it's kind of exciting to be in here, and let's get into the action. So if you're not familiar with the Bad Company series, this is the second entry. Our squad has battled and been together, and now we are sort of continuing things. It's interesting because the last one had a bit of a more intimate story of just some guys getting gold. So now we're the Bad Company, and we're actually sent in on missions and stuff that we are considered, I guess you could say, expendable in, and I think that's kind of interesting. And I think the campaign missions are actually quite interesting, and I did like the narrative in this one in regards to how it handled the characters, how it evolved the story, and how it did some more surprising things with it, I guess. And then the cliffhanger ending in this one is just absolutely terrible to be left with. I've been waiting for a Bad Company 3 for a very, very long time. And I do wonder if we'll ever actually end up seeing that happen. It would be great, but at this point, it is what it is. So we also get like faster loading, and what was really cool about this game that I think truly got me into this series, particularly like the Bad Company stuff, but like playing the first one and then seeing it more here, was the sense of destruction. It was really unlike anything I had seen really at that time at all, and I still don't see games kind of do the level of destruction that was present here. So you see that building? You just take out the wall. You could sit here, and you can like basically blow out the entire wall and watch the house crumble. And I'm still kind of like a little disappointed that we don't, I don't know, it doesn't feel like the same sense of destruction as it did back in the day. Now, I'm not saying that it's not more complex in terms of how things break apart nowadays in the modern Battlefield titles, but if you get what I mean, at the time, the destruction was really, what is going on today with me and dying so quickly in shooters? Maybe I'm just not used to it. But when you're, seeing the destruction today, it's not quite as wow as it used to be, if that makes sense. It's not as insanely large scale. It doesn't feel the same. And I mean, I definitely think that we have bigger destruction and larger chaos nowadays, but it still doesn't feel as insane as it did in this release, if you get what I mean. It was just so crazy seeing all of these buildings crumble, all of these things you could smash, making yourself a hole in the wall, and then walking in and battling from it. It was kind of just absolutely fascinating. And again, really distinct, and I remember it so clearly. I think the grenades have smiley faces on them still. I don't know if they got rid of them for this one. Let me cook this. Yeah, it's still got the smiley grenade on it, I think. That's kind of fun. I always like that. The Battlefield series is like, have a nice day. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily hold up perfectly well around the edges. It's not as clean as the modern Battlefield titles, but it's still really fun, and it's still a really interesting and enticing campaign that I think should be played today. I actually do... Oh crap, that was bad. That was bad. I do suggest playing both of them. If you just jump into one, this one is actually really great. I did quite like it. And again, that ending point where you're like, what, is kind of a little nuts. I mean, the levels aren't anything too wild. They're mostly fairly large, open. Well, yeah, I'd say they're fairly open in how you approach situations. And I did like that freedom. They do also have lots of cinematic moments. Sort of a, I guess you could say, like a satire type of narrative in regards to, you know, the characters and what you're doing and the situation you're a part of, because you're like such an expendable crew. Maybe a little bit less in this one, but in the first one, definitely, like, they do not care. And that's what's so fun about it, is you're sort of just this almost rebellious team that I guess kind of works towards starting a war. Yeah, it's definitely really cool and so unique. And I think if you're looking for a really great sort of, you know, FPS shooter, like a story one, I think you'll find this to be very different from what you're seeing from other games and other studios, because, you know, we don't get a lot of more jokey shooters. I mean, we've had some over the years. Wow, I keep just wholesale getting shot up by people today. It's absolutely crazy to me. Usually I'm just like obliterating people on normal. Like, there's different difficulties too, if you're wondering. But yeah, usually I'm just absolutely like shredding opponents. But I guess it also allows me to kind of be like, hey, here's a different approach you could take for this particular situation. See, it's kind of linear, but at the same time, you know, you do very much get some choices in how you want to tackle situations and how you want to battle people. And again, seeing the sense of, you know, destruction that's present here, it's sort of nuts, right? Oh, and there's collectibles and things to gather along the way too, which is kind of fun. Lots of different people to take out and lots of different missions. It's really quite cool. And again, the Bad Company series is just a lot of fun when it comes to being something weird within the Battlefield games. Holy, what is going on today? We're going to switch over and show off, hopefully, the multiplayer, though, now. So this is the multiplayer. We're in Conquest on, I think, the Panama... Yeah, that's what we were loading into. Sorry, we had to reset things because it got an infinite loop. But yeah, not a whole lot of players playing in the quick match, but there are people. So, you know, it's definitely playable, which is kind of cool. Anyways, none of my classes are really set up, it looks like, for whatever reason. Though, yeah, we're jumping into these maps of destruction. It was a lot smaller lobby sizes, too. It was only until we got to the last generation, I guess you could say, Xbox One, PS4, that we actually started to see larger scale lobby sizes with lots of players. It was definitely a bit of a big change, I guess you could say, in terms of online multiplayer for the Battlefield franchise when it came to consoles. Still, this sort of really set a weird standard in terms of competitive multiplayer. It changed the Battlefield series up quite a bit, and it did a lot of really interesting things for the series. And I think it was just really, really well done. I had a lot of fun playing this with friends. Oh, geez, that guy's not dead. Though I think we usually played hardcore because people could be a little spongy in this one. But yeah, and we also used to play Rush. Rush was our thing, where you capture posts and kind of push along. I definitely enjoyed that more, but I know Conquest is very, very well loved. And there's squad-based play, where you're sort of working together and spawning off one another and having a pretty good time, at least I think so. I don't know, it's definitely something that I think has sort of held up. It's not the prettiest looking experience in terms of the visuals, but yeah, I remember when this used to be just like the most cutting edge sort of experience, and now you look at it on a bigger sort of resolution screen and be like, I mean, they do, like, it's not the worst, but it is a little jagged here or there, and some of the lighting and stuff is a bit, you know, iffy and odd, but I think for the most part it does provide still a really good competitive multiplayer. And actually, you know what, I'm playing at a fairly late sort of time, so you very well could, you know, actually end up with more players during a full day situation. So the cool thing about the Battlefield multiplayer is that typically not only is it infantry based, there's also like vehicles and, you know, like tanks and stuff. So that's kind of fun. It's definitely different. And oh man, that skybox looks ugly. That is just like a picture in there. Ooh. Yeah, it's amazing looking back at this and seeing how things haven't necessarily aged perfectly in every regard. I still, you know, when you're looking at this, I think the campaign is something to be the most important element of it, at least to me, for if you were to go back and give this game a whirl for maybe, you know, the first time, or if you wanted to check it out. Like, of course, you can play the multiplayer clearly. You know, you can find other people. That's not an issue. It took me a second to jump into a match. There's others. There's not a whole lot of players, but it could be late at night. That could be part of the issue. But yeah, I think it's just kind of a cool, different sort of game, a different type of multiplayer. And again, with a cool sense of destruction to it. I always found that just so great in this one. Want a wall, make a wall. And I don't really think of that as much when I play the new Battlefield titles. It's more like other people are causing destruction, whereas I'm just sort of running around doing, you know, combat and stuff. And I think that's maybe because there's not as much of a focus on using the destruction to kind of get around open areas. It doesn't give you as much freedom for that destruction, which I think is a little disappointing. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this dive into Battlefield Bad Company 2. It's a fun series. It's definitely something worth checking out, playing the first one. And then the second one, if you can. But you could probably jump into the second one just fine as well if you want to play that. And it's still a very neat series, and I want to destroy this guy. There he is. Yeah, neat set of weapons. You know, there's leveling online in that. I'm just not sure you're going to have as much potential to really play the full scope of what this is. Oh, you can actually die in the water in this one. I'm used to you being able to actually swim around. Like, even this, it's just laughable, the backdrops nowadays. But back then, it looked really, really good. It did. This was a superb title and everything like that. It really was a premium multiplayer experience that was a blast to play. And now it's just a little bit older, but we can still blow up walls, and that actually really does still look impressive. How did that not blow up? It is very glowy from the HDR, though, but for the most part, it actually does add quite a bit to it.